I hate this concept of mansplaining. It gets thrown around like an insult or a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. What does mansplaining really mean? And what does it mean about men? What if I told you, in fact, that most men are not trying to domineer over women when they explain something, like modern wisdom tells us that they might be? In reality, most men who do this action are actually trying to bond with the woman. What if I told you that the cultural response to mansplaining has been so distorted that we're now punishing healthy male behavior while reinforcing the very traits that we claim to hate? Let's talk about this. If you're a man, this might sound familiar to you. You try to explain something that you genuinely know a lot about. You try to pass on knowledge and wisdom something. Maybe it's your profession. Maybe it's how to fix a broken sink. Maybe it's something that she asked you about. But the moment you start talking, her face changes. She gets cold. She gets withdrawn, offended, as if you just insulted her intelligence by opening your mouth. Now, you're stuck. You were trying to help, trying to connect, but now you feel like the villain in a story you didn't even know you were in. It's a lot like being a mechanic trying to change a tire for someone, and halfway through, they accuse you of having slashed their tire on purpose. You showed up with tools to try to help, but somehow you're the threat. And if you're a woman, maybe you felt talked down to by a man who assumed you knew nothing. Maybe you've had men explain your own job to you in your own story, your own experience. And if you're a man, again, you've probably been trying to help. You've been told that you're trying to control. Maybe you've been punished for doing what you thought was the right thing. This whole issue, it's not just a communication issue. It's often a trust issue, an attachment issue, an understanding issue. And the truth behind it is going to surprise you. I'm Adam Lane Smith, the attachment specialist, and after 16 years of training and experience and working with thousands of clients, I've seen this dynamic destroy relationships, build resentment, and fuel the gender divide in ways that most people don't even understand. Today, I'm going to unpack the psychology behind what we call mansplaining, why men do it, why it often backfires, and how feminism weaponized a natural bonding behavior into a reason to hate half the population, and how that's harming women. By the end of this video, you're going to see mansplaining in a way you have never seen it before, and you'll understand several key things. First, you're going to understand two entirely different types of mansplaining, and why lumping them together is tearing relationships apart. You'll see the hidden biological reason that men teach the people that they care about most, and why that looks abrasive to some women. You'll understand why avoidant men in particular can come across as condescending, and how to tell the difference between a protector and teacher and a manipulator. Most importantly, you'll understand what both men and women need to stop misreading each other and start building trust again. If you've ever felt misunderstood, disrespected, or blamed just for how you communicate, stick with me. This video will change how you connect with the opposite sex forever. Now let's talk about what most people think mansplaining is, and how they think it's about men being condescending all the time, but that barely scratches the surface on what's actually happening. Most people completely miss the internal conflict happening inside both the man and the woman who's present in the experience. The woman, quite often, feels dismissed, unheard, undermined, fully disrespected. And the man often isn't trying to steamroll over her. He's actually, many times, trying to help. But all of it completely lands wrong. And this is what most people get wrong. Now, where did mansplaining come from as a concept for all of us? Well, let's talk about post-2010-ish feminist dialogue on social media, Twitter, for example, and male overcorrections away from it, okay? Male input was labeled as mansplaining. A lot of women took off and said, "Don't you hate it when a man just talks over you and assumes you know nothing, talks down to you like a child, disrespects you, tries to browbeat you in public and look like the expert?" And a bunch of very angry women said, yes, that happens all the time. In fact, all men everywhere do that every chance they get. They are all bullies. They are so mean and disrespectful. And boom, it took off. Suddenly, any man ever who ever explained anything was now mansplaining. There are examples in parliaments around the world where one person was trying to explain to a colleague something who then got shouted down for mansplaining by describing what was politically happening. Okay? Even the highest levels of government, people are using the word mansplaining to try to domineer over the other side. It is not always women who actually feel disrespected, by the way, but plenty of vicious, vindictive women who use the term to shut down, gaslight, and stonewall men by accusing them of things like this, of mansplaining. What does mansplaining mean? Well, the term itself means you are explaining like a man, which is rather sexist and hurtful, really, number one. But really, let's dig into that. Mansplaining means if you are ever teaching, explaining, guiding, describing, talking, you are instantly hurting everyone in your environment, and you should never share information ever again. Does that sound useful? I really don't think so. Instead, this creates defensive patterns on both sides. Okay? Now, let's be abundantly clear. There are absolutely jerks and hurtful people who bully everyone around them, men or women. And they often find it easier to bully women who tend to be more agreeable and accommodating on most personality charts. So it's easier for these almost borderline sociopathic individuals to bully women by over-domineering them, by trying to look like the brilliant expert and explain things to a woman who knows better than he does. These men absolutely exist. These women absolutely exist, by the way, too. It's not gender specific. Jerks are jerks. Now, like many things today, we have taken these group of people and then said every single person in their entire demographic is exactly like them because they get most of the attention. Okay? It's a big thing that's happening right now. I get asked all the time, what is my attachment style? What is my attachment style? What is my attachment style? So I have finally launched the attachment assessment. This is not a short quiz that just spits out an answer after 3 seconds. This is a thorough, in-depth, science-backed assessment. Check it out on my website, adamlanesmith.com, and learn your attachment style, the severity of what you're dealing with, and some next steps you can take right now to build very secure attachment. There are also a lot of men who give unsolicited guidance and talking and training because they get way ahead of themselves and begin trying to teach and help and accidentally steamroll over other people. Okay? One important thing, and we'll talk about male teaching behaviors in a moment, but one important thing to understand is the vast majority of these experiences are usually unintentional. We do not have a gigantic preponderance of horrible, evil, nightmarish men roaming the earth, talking down to everybody. The research is fairly clear that society typically has about 10% of personality disordered individuals, and they tend to be the ones who are least empathetic and actually most hurtful toward other people. That's what the personality disorder indicates, is that they are in hard survival mode with extensively low empathy. Now, some of them, for example, if they have antisocial personality disorder, are literally sociopaths. That's where sociopathy comes from, is antisocial personality disorder, or sometimes narcissistic personality disorder, which needs to look big and impressive and powerful by putting down other people for comparison. These are the men and women who go out there hurting other people. Now, one way of doing that is to look like the absolute expert in the room by vindictively, controllingly, domineeringly over-explaining to an expert who knows better than you do, but pretending you're smarter than them so everyone around you, the audience, thinks that you're the big shot. This does happen. This is not the most common process. Modern feminism, however, extrapolates this damaging sociopathic behavior and then says every man on the planet does this. This is a natural man behavior. All men are sociopaths. Modern feminism says all men are sociopaths. Modern male red pill circles say all women are sociopaths. Both sides really are just reflecting the absolute terror that the adherents of that belief system hold against the opposite sex. It's what it is. But what if the problem isn't that every man on the planet is a horrific sociopath? What if it's how he says things and how it's being presented? What if we have a rise of attachment issues, for example, and people don't understand what other people are doing or why? What if a lot of women are confused by male behavior and a lot of men are confused about what women want from them? This brings us to the brain science behind male teaching behavior. Let's talk about what's happening in a man's brain when he tries to teach. It is important to note that the male brain is essentially a solution-focused machine. We observe problems in the back, we leap forward to solve those problems. Now, if we can't solve the problem and don't have the data, we get stuck, frustrated, and eventually depressed. So men value data and solutions above almost everything else. Now, teaching and passing on data and solutions to other people becomes one of the highest values of investments you can make in somebody. I believe in you. You might need this information, and I would love for you to overcome whatever challenge you're describing. I have that data. Let me share it with you real quick. This is often what male brains are designed for, to perform, for utility, for problem solving, and then for sharing. We actually get biochemically rewarded for sharing solutions with somebody we care about. When a man teaches, he is investing the time to pass on useful knowledge to prevent harm, damage, and frustration and depression in somebody else. He is saying, here, please don't be frustrated or depressed. Here's some great information that can help you. He's not usually trying to belittle. He's valuing that person. He's transferring knowledge. But if that information isn't asked for, and many men do this without meaning to, it feels invasive. Now, the testosterone-driven reward loop in male brains gives us testosterone and good feelings, serotonin, dopamine when we give information to someone we care about. It is a form of caretaking. It's a form of protecting. It's a form of serving. Our neurons activate and say, wow, this feels great, and I'm helping. I'm helping. Here's a problem. Men do this with each other. A man will say, yeah, I know that part. Skip ahead. Yep, I know that part. Skip ahead. Ah, wait, there's a part I didn't have. Explain that to me. And then we sort through that knowledge and information if they're securely attached. If men are not securely attached, they'll struggle to do this. And that's why a lot of men who are not securely attached don't get solutions. They get frustrated and they have a high preponderance of depression. But they can't pass on knowledge to each other. Securely attached men throw information back and forth and sort and push around and then find what they need. It's like sorting and sifting, and for the jewels inside, you find what you need by shoving away all the other crap. And men don't usually take it personally when they do that because they say, okay, he's got that, he's got that, he's got that. Ah, wait, here's where you're missing. Cool, got it. Oh, man. And you'll see both guys go, oh, good. And they both get a pump because he's passed on knowledge, he's received knowledge, problem solved, yeah. And we actually get something called vasopressin, a hormone released when we solve problems with other people. This actually bonds them and says, we are allies. When I was there and stuck, you were there and helped. Thank you. And the other guy goes, yeah, I helped. I provided. The brains get rewarded for this secure bonding behavior. It is really hard for a woman to step into this experience with unsolicited information, because most women are accommodating and will just listen patiently. And then the man starts from the beginning and just explains everything. And she would only do this to a child. A woman typically would ask questions first. Hey, where are you maybe getting stuck? What's kind of happening? Can I share something with you that was helpful for me? Right? And men should learn this skill. Absolutely vital that men learn, instead of giving unsolicited advice, ask, assess, check in. That's actually part of leadership, teaching, all of this. But women tend to do this more and are trained to do it even, right? So women will be more careful and tactful. If you don't, you just explain to a child everything from start to finish. So a lot of women feel disrespected as if they're being treated like a child. They don't know how to sort. Now, a lot of women have attachment issues and they don't understand why he's doing this, and they can't even stop sorting. They just get hurt and sad and resentful. Now, if she has both the bullying men talking down to her that way and other confused, maybe socially not as adept men steamrolling her, it can feel the same. It's invasive in both ways. It's not sorted properly. It's not teaching the person the way they need to be taught. A big, important component of adequately teaching is understanding how the person wants to learn and if the information is welcome. And most men are missing this step badly because they're jumping into that testosterone-driven reward loop for teaching. But it still doesn't stop us from saying he is doing it because he cares. He is trying to help. I know that a lot of the people watching this show right now have had attachment issues for their entire life. That's why I want to invite every single one of you to check out my attachment repair program. It just might be the jump that you need to go from insecurely attached and lonely and frustrated to fully secure, connected, and bonded in a great relationship like nothing you've ever felt before. Check out my website, adamlanesmith.com, for the attachment repair program. Now, in romantic relationships, this can shred the trust between the two people, especially because a lot of women are not actually looking for solutions much of the time. They're looking to share and process and talk, and they will find their own solutions on their own time. They are trying to share with a partner. The men who have attachment issues especially often don't understand the processing sharing component. They've never experienced it themselves, and no one has ever initiated them into it. That's something men have to learn and be guided into. So instead, he leaps into solutions. Wait! Stop talking about your day. I heard a problem. I have a solution for you. Everyone rejoice. We don't have to share anymore. Here's a solution. And he goes into detail describing a solution. And the whole time she's not sitting there going, wow, how nice. He solved the problem and he cares about me so much he's teaching me. No, her brain is saying, wow, he shut me up. He doesn't care about listening about my day. He told me to stop talking. All he's doing is rambling at me about stuff I already know. Why doesn't he care? Two completely opposite experiences, and neither person is the bad one. Deep misunderstanding. Many men completely misinterpret emotional expression as a problem to solve, not to be heard, not a need, not connection. Okay? That natural urge then that those men are feeling gets twisted into a concept of he must feel superior to me. Okay? Now again, let's talk about the darker side of this, the ones who are actually condescending. Now I call this the pompous, condescending subtype. There is a very real subset of men who use information to dominate. Domineer is even really the word, not to educate. These are not the men who are trying to bond and share and connect. These are the ones who actually fit the stereotype that people are talking about. Okay? Key points to cover here. These men get self-worth from being the smartest, most impressive person in the room. And they will mansplain down to you, especially in front of an audience, because then the audience goes, ooh, he's teaching that astrophysicist her job. He must be smarter than her. They often speak over anyone they can, but especially women, because women are trying to connect, share, they're more accommodating. And that man is looking to domineer over everyone in the room and gain points at your expense. It's bullying for grown-ups. Their insecurity, or their weakness or fear, is masked by performance. Look at how incredible I am. They tend to correct people in public to elevate themselves. I've had people try to do this to me at events, which is very interesting. They try to explain attachment styles to me in front of an audience to try to take control. It does not go well for them, as you can imagine. But there are a subset of people that only gain validation by destroying other people. Again, we call this sociopathic behavior. We call this bullying for adults. Now, this behavior, and rightly so, activates the threat response in other people, and especially women, who are quite often the target of it because you're an easier target. It's what they call a soft target. A hard target is challenging to hit and crack, and you could take damage. But a soft target, fire away. Women are very often more agreeable, more accommodating, more fearful. They're more likely to freeze than fight back. There's a lot of examples I can give, but in the academic world, the tech world, social context, there are so many women who do suffer tremendously from these men. Okay? And again, it's not exclusive to men. There are just as many harmful, predatory women out there as there are men, and we know this by research. But I want to be very careful here, because that is not even close to the majority of men. Let's talk next about what happens when well-intentioned men feel constantly accused of sociopathic behavior. When you shut them up and tell them they are monsters for trying to bond and connect and do a basic thing that maybe they're fumbling, but trying to do well, let's talk about what this does to the men. I want you to pause for a moment and imagine that there's a group of people you really care about. There's a group of people you'd like to actually impress. But that group of people is constantly talking about what a horrific monster you are because you're trying to connect with them. They're treating you like a horrible, sociopathic creature that does nothing but hurt others for fun. And you know that that is not you. But again and again and again and again, every time you open social media, you go to work, you go to HR trainings, all you hear is about how bad you are. Many men today feel like they are constantly under attack, not because they're actually doing something malicious or hurtful, but for simply existing with masculine traits. To them, modern feminism is not at all about any kind of equality. It's about erasure of them as human beings. I want to be very clear here. Modern men in the West report feeling silenced, not empowered, in many gender conversations. Social media rewards the demonization of men, the dehumanization of them. You post something about punishing men or removing them. I've seen some horrible calls for terrible violence against men, and it gets a tremendous amount of support and boost. The phrase toxic masculinity is completely overused. Men feel labeled before they even speak, so they stop engaging entirely. And this is having massive, massive fallout for not just men, but women. A lot of women are reporting that men are no longer mentoring them in professional settings, so women can't get the training they need from older colleagues. Women are not able to get promoted because they don't get the skills they need from learning from good men. The men who should be speaking up and should be teaching and should be explaining and should be helping are now fearful of doing it because they'll be shut down and insulted and told that they're mansplaining like a sociopath. Women are suffering from this. This is not one of those women are hardest hit. Men are very hard hit with this as well, but everybody's suffering from this. This is not good for any of us. Now, the cortisol spikes in men who feel socially rejected and disrespected. It makes them withdraw, stonewall, pull away, give up. Across the world, in industrialized societies where radical feminism has taken hold and things like mansplaining are used as a bludgeon against men to shut them up, men are withdrawing completely. Men are living quiet lives of agonizing desperation. Many of them are checking out, sometimes checking out from society and sometimes checking out from life. A lot of women are haunted by this because it turns out a lot of women actually like men. But we keep beating up on men, insulting and demonizing them. So what happens when you beat up on men for this long? Well, a lot of defensiveness, a lot of reverse attacks, right? We see the rise of the red pill movement, first all over Reddit, now all over the social media. Okay, we see the rise of angry, vindictive, juvenile masculinity, swaggering caricatures of men whose entire personalities are based on hating and controlling women. You see the freeze and flight responses from men that arise when men feel completely blamed without any dialogue. No one's asking questions, they're shrieking. The difference between attacking a system and attacking an identity is huge. You are bad for being alive. That's the message many men are hearing today. I grew up in California. I heard a lot of this messaging from my female school teachers, from politicians in office, from every angle, everywhere. We've seen this messaging in social media and in regular media. We've even seen this message from leaders in franchises. If you remember when Disney took over Star Wars, a historically very masculine appearance and very masculine franchise that had positive male role models who took responsibility, were calm, empathetic, and kind, and then they were twisted and broken into bad caricatures of failed men, the female owners of the franchise and the leaders in it stepped forward and said, "Men, your time is over. These stories aren't for you anymore. Go away." Men have now disengaged. They've disconnected. They've pulled away for fear of constant abuse and backlash just for being men. I want to pause here for a second. If you're a woman trying to understand your partner, and this is resonating, or if you're a man who wants to be heard without being misunderstood, private coaching with me and my team might be your next best step if you feel like you can't get out of that pit. We can help unpack your exact situation in your relationships and help you apply what we've talked about here to create trust and connection. If you want to communicate with confidence and peace and be fully understood, apply now for a private coaching consult. The link's down in the description. Now let's talk about this for a moment. If men are being raised with this messaging, what's it doing to them? Well, it's breaking their attachment, for one thing. Men are retreating, they're staying quiet, and they're either fawning or fleeing. And those are two different behavior types. We'll talk about that. It's not always that they don't care. Very rarely do men not care. They care a great deal. But often, they're scared of getting it wrong and being attacked for it. Okay? Some men are doing things even more complex than that. We talk a lot about avoidant men, and specific on this channel. Let's talk about how this impacts them. Avoidant men often feel strangely torn. On one hand, they crave control and self-sufficiency so no one can overwhelm them, engulf them, or control them ever. On the other hand, they are men. They still want to protect and provide, but on their terms. They don't know how to be safe in a relationship, and they're fearful of getting hurt, so everything has to be on their terms. And those terms are not usually very healthy. Many avoidant men equate being vulnerable so that they could be criticized with weakness and danger. Explaining, I'll be screamed at. I'll be told I'm mansplaining. Look at that. That senator in parliament is being screamed at and told he's mansplaining just for having a discussion with a colleague. I'm not going there. Their version of protection is often distant, sometimes controlling, moving you around so you're safe, not collaborative. They resist feedback because it threatens their sense of authority. They've been yelled at their whole life for being told they're bad. Why would they listen now? They grew up with this messaging. And they may, and usually do, interpret modern feminism as an absolute threat to their ability to protect. Most avoidant men are convinced every woman out there is a radical feminist at heart, waiting for her chance to turn against him and take everything he has. I have yet to talk to an avoidant man who doesn't think any woman out there is just a hair trigger. Now, a lot of men have gone the opposite direction. Instead of being avoidant and pulling away and controlling, they instead have become fawning. They don't know how to make women happy, so they simply live their whole life desperately trying to please women. And these men often fail, right? These are nice guys. They're men put in the friend zone. They're men that women don't trust because they're not emotionally stable, but they're also fulfilling a very feminine, supplicating role instead. This is not what women are looking for at all, and it's not the answer. But it's what these men are doing to try to avoid the pain of being hated, demonized, and mislabeled. This is what a lot of men are facing. Either knuckle under and be pleasing, supplicating, and fawning and be mistreated like a purse dog, or turn away, run, hide, control, and don't ever connect or open up. This seems to be the choice that many men have thrust upon them. I don't think it's the actual choice. There's secure attachment, but in our modern world, this is the choice a lot of men are faced with. But what if instead of blaming men like we've been doing, or excusing them, because I don't do that either, we gave men something else? A language to understand themselves, a map to find their way back, and a way to build better relationships and better communication. What is a better way then to solve this war of the sexes as we're all angry and screaming at each other and convinced that the other side is all nothing but sociopaths? Well, what if we started by assuming that most men today are not malicious or evil, but simply confused? What if we begin by saying men want to do it right, but they don't know how? A lot of men today, for example, are told to open up, but then punished when they speak. They're told to lead, but scolded when they do so. So, what do you say to a man like that? I say we start by doing the opposite of screaming, yelling, and demonizing. We start with curiosity. What if we invite men into a conversation about masculinity? Hey, when you teach me like that, when you talk like that, what are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to do? Why do you talk to me that way? Help me understand. Why? Well, I just want you to have the information. Oh. When you talk to me that way, sometimes it feels like you think I don't know those things. Well, no, I'm waiting for you to tell me to skip along, but you never do. Huh. Okay. What if instead you ask me first what I know and see if there's any gaps? We can find the gaps. Then I'm happy for you to explain those to me. Not a problem. But if you begin at the beginning, I'm not going to cut you off. I'm going to assume that you think I know nothing. Whoa, no, I know you know a lot. I'm just trying to help. Understood. I should ask you before I start sharing. Cool. What's a good way for me to ask you? There's a great conversation that would have avoided this whole mansplaining thing in the first place. But it's not financially lucrative to teach people to care about each other, is it? It's more lucrative to teach them to hate each other and then benefit from the war, unfortunately. We need to invite men into conversations about communication, about understanding, about masculinity, instead of attacking men. Okay? We need to frame this understanding and transparency as courage, not weakness. Okay? We need to acknowledge the good parts of men that are trying to protect, trying to teach, trying to be good mentors, trying to help. Reframe these things as strengths and then redirect them in a smarter way. Part of the problem is that most of these men have no experience actually talking to women. They were raised by single moms who worked themselves to death in masculine roles and had no time with him. So all he did was grow up with caricatures of women in media, and now he's trying to talk to women in the way that makes sense to him. It's usually a place of ignorance and trying. Let's reframe that conversation. I'm going to be really clear on my stance here. At the end of the day, the vast majority of men are not trying to dominate in conversation. They're actually trying to help, and they're trying to teach. They're trying to assist. They're trying to share. And it means that they care. So let's wrap up with this, okay? Let's land this plane together here at the end of this video. If you've ever felt frustrated trying to talk to a man who seems to explain instead of listening, you're not crazy. And he's also not necessarily a narcissist trying to hurt you. There's a reason that these moments feel like disconnection, even when they start with good intentions. There's a conversation that needs to get had. And if you're a man who's been accused of mansplaining and you didn't know what you did wrong, you're not broken. You're not evil. In fact, what you've been doing is often a hardwired expression of care, not control. But without a secure framework, without understanding of how communication is supposed to work, without stopping to check in with the other person and ask more questions and understand and teach appropriately when they want you to, even good instincts can get misunderstood and misinterpreted. Now, none of this conversation should be interpreted as shaming men for being men. I will never do that. Or excusing toxic bullying communication attempts. I also will never allow that. This conversation is about peeling back the cultural noise and actually understanding what's going on in our nervous systems, in our hormones, our unmet attachment needs, and our generational wounds that we've existed in. Because if we don't understand the why, we will just keep blaming each other over and over and over. And that's not helping anyone. So where do we go from here? For women, first, you start by understanding that some men teach or connect or even correct as a bid for connection and bonding, not usually domination. And that changes everything. He's trying to connect. He values you. You can learn to distinguish between secure men who are awkwardly trying to connect, or even anxious or avoidant men who are trying to connect, and really insecure, personality disordered even men who are trying to dominate and mask their shame by controlling you. And for men, this video should be a wake-up call. You've likely been taught that value comes from what you know and how well you solve problems, which is great, but true connection doesn't come from throwing solutions at people. It comes from calm connection, presence, and actual helping. From listening, from emotional safety for the person you're talking to. You're trying to teach, and you're taking away emotional safety because the way you're teaching is incorrect. You need to learn. Now, the good news here is this. Masculine leadership, teaching, it doesn't have to mean emotional repression for anybody. In fact, it shouldn't. That's doing it wrong. It doesn't have to be being right either. It doesn't have to mean hiding your fear of failure under logic or superiority. You can be deeply masculine and deeply connected at the same time. And in fact, that's what it leads to when you do it right. That's what real power looks like, is actually serving and teaching and guiding with people who feel safe in your presence. That's what mature masculinity looks like. You create safety for others and also teach them in ways they're ready and wanting to receive. That's what doing this work and becoming mature, securely masculine is supposed to be. So again, I'll say this. If this video really landed for you and you want help applying these insights in your relationship and other communication approaches that aren't going right, if you're tired of tiptoeing around emotional minefields or feeling like you're speaking different languages with the person you love, I want to invite you to come work with me privately. Okay, this is not therapy. It's not fluffy communication tips. It is real, structured coaching to help you rebuild trust, to decode avoidant behavior, de-escalate conflict, create a secure relationship from the ground up. I'll help you rewire how you connect with others using proven neuroscience-backed frameworks rooted in years of real results. Whether you're healing from a rupture in your relationship or trying to break a painful pattern, you don't have to do it alone. You'll find the link to apply for private coaching down in the description below this video. And if it's a fit, we can walk the rest of your journey together. I'm Adam Lane Smith, the attachment specialist. I will always be on the side of people who want to connect, not on the side of people who want to hate. And if you're one of those people, well, welcome to the channel. I'll see you in the comments. But if you are somebody who watched this video and said, wow, I think I understand men or women differently, and I think I want to communicate better, bravo. I'm glad you're here. Welcome. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and come to my next live stream. I would love to talk with you there. Until then, communicate better. Take care of each other.